All right, welcome in a special edition early version of Hail to the Podcast as once again, Pete Thamel gets to decide what I do on the weekends. Josh and I, you'll have to forgive us getting a little bit of PTSD throwbacks to last fall and just the constant slow drip of information. So obviously we're here to talk about the ESPN report into the draft, the NOA draft floating around. We have some new reporting on that as well that we'll get into. Kind of just wanted to go through it because obviously in the world we live in today, everything is kind of digested via Twitter in 280 characters or less. And look, there's a lot of new information here. There's a lot of, I think, frankly, information we've known for a while that's, we've reported on, fans have known on. And yeah, just trying to figure out what's in here, what we know, and what we think is next. Yeah, so let's get into it. Of course, I'm Trevor, McCue, senior editor, Maize and Blue Review, joined as always by Josh Henschke, Intel Insider publisher, who, we were looking forward to talking about some Michigan media availability we had today. Fall camp obviously kicking into gear, and once again, just so well timed as people are starting to get into college football here. Here's this NOA draft report, Josh.
Yep. And yeah. It is what it is at this point.
This is it is what it is podcast.
I don't know if
you say that a lot.
Hand up for that. I guess I don't catch myself doing it, but I guess
I'm aware of it now because it's been brought up. But
say it to my face because I don't have anyone telling me that.
Anyway, wanted to talk football. Look, it is what it is, and obviously this entire thing has been a cloud hanging over Michigan since the news broke back in October. We knew. Well, I'll go ahead and lead off with something I was able to report a little bit ago. I did confirm with 3 different sources, including somebody involved with, I'll say, the Michigan Athletic Department, that the NOA draft that is being referenced in this ESPN article is an old version of the draft. Now, does that mean that there are things? Does Michigan have the NOA? I don't know. Does Michigan have a different version? Are the penalties less severe? Is there more things that I don't know? What I do know is we're working from, this is an older version that has been reported by ESPN. And according to one source, the mood in Michigan continues to be the same, which is unbothered was the phrase that this source used, kind of similar to Josh's reporting if you missed last week. And I do think as much as there's a lot of allegations and violations in here, one thing that continues to be the same, the Connor Stalions scheme part of it, and Michigan being severely punished for the scheme and the coach's involvement and any talk of potential vacating wins, that part continues to fall flat even in what we've seen in this report.
Yeah, look, it doesn't matter whether the draft is old, new, it could have been delivered, carved on a stone tablet for all I care. The idea of what's in there won't change. They've, as much digging as the NCAA has done, and they've done a lot of digging.
Clearly.
They've done a lot of asking. Yeah, they've done a lot of asking. Some of their requests are wild that they've asked for. I'm talking old email accounts that haven't been used from the past 15 plus years, bank accounts they wanted access to,
Harbaugh's personal cell phone.
Yeah, personal cell phone.
I don't know about you, Josh, but I'll tell you directly. If you ever asked as my boss for my personal cell phone, I'm telling you to F off. If an organization above you that I am somewhat affiliated with asks for my personal cell phone, what? What a crazy request, man.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if it's a new version or an old version. What could they possibly add to the new version? Nothing. It would be likely being taken away because they stated clearly in the article and in the draft that there's no link to no tangible evidence that links anyone to knowledge of Stalions' scheme. And that's what it comes down to. It's the letter of, I hate saying letter of the law because the NCAA isn't the law, but in this case, they're the ones investigating. I mean, you can say all you want, oh yeah, Michigan coaches had to know. If that's the case, maybe, but they don't have evidence suggesting that, and that's what they're going off of. They can't just assume that people knew. So, I mean, really what we're talking about now is just simply level 1 violations of non-cooperating. What does not cooperating look like? Obviously refusing to give up information, Sharon's deleting of text messages, which is probably not the smartest move ever, but I'm trying to, we're looking at it like this is not new information that Michigan's getting. They didn't, Michigan isn't looking at this article going, wow, we had no idea this was happening. They knew all of this. So the fact that Ward Manuel elevated Sharon Moore to head coach truly suggests that they're unbothered by all of this. They were well aware that, Sharon is being tagged with not cooperating, the repeat offender line that, that is being thrown around because of the Burgergate stuff. I don't think Sharon would be the head coach right now if they were really concerned. No, you won't. Yeah, you see, just simply wouldn't be.
Yeah, so Chris Partridge was literally terminated the day Michigan found out from the NCAA that he had essentially coached a player on what to say during the NCAA interview. That is a level 1 violation that is listed in here for Partridge. He was terminated the day of. And the Harbaugh negotiated suspension to potentially 2 games where he would be able to coach against Ohio State. Done. Michigan agrees to the 3, right? The Partridge thing blew up the whole deal, right? Yeah. So to think Moore would have been promoted. And again, if you read the article, it says Sharon Moore deleted the texts, a text thread with Stalions that came from the day the news story broke about the sign stealing scheme. Those text messages were recovered and then turned over to the NCAA by Sharon Moore. They weren't found later by the NCAA. They recovered, right? So deleting him is stupid. Who knows what his thought process was in that moment? But when they got those texts,
honestly, he probably just texted Connor being like, "What the hell are you doing?
What the hell are you doing? What is this about? Is this true?" Right?
Yeah, I mean,
because if there was anything damning connecting Moore or any of the other coaches in those texts, we'd know about it because the NCAA got the text. So the level 2 violation being assessed to Moore there is simply for the deletion of the text and then eventually turning them over, not for any of the contents or anything that was said in the text. So again, stupid thing to do. When we talked about with Partridge too, the NCAA is up your butt and looking at every single possible thing they can. It was just a dumb thing to try. And we don't know exactly what was said to the player, but it was obviously enough. Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
But anyway, I did want to real quick, because we talked about, and I want you to keep going, obviously, but I want to focus on the Stalions part first, and then we'll get into everything extra that they dug up on the other coaches. The one thing I would say, I don't want to say necessarily new, but like at least this is the first time we've seen this reported, is Stalions being connected to other people. Right.
Yeah.
No one on the coaching staff, like you said, that's still, and nothing listed in the NOA draft is a punishment to any of the coaches regarding the scheme itself. Right. Harbaugh, you brought up the non-compliance. We talked about him not providing his cell phone. And then not only do they say there was no evidence of Harbaugh's involvement, what they say is right here: the draft states Harbaugh failed to actively look for or evaluate red flags. So, and we've seen this before. You didn't know, but you're the head coach. You should have. Like that. We expected that, right? Like that, and a show cause for Harbaugh. That part we expected. We've seen the CEO rule, so to speak. What we have not seen anywhere in any of this text is that doomed. What is the terminology about the program? I just had somebody on Twitter try and bring it up, and I was like, no, it's not in there. I have so many comments now I can't find it. It's lack of institutional control.
Oh yeah,
that was not in there, right? So,
no.
But so
I don't
Stalions
think that hasn't even been on the radar. It hasn't even been referenced.
No, but I think that was if that phrase appeared, that was going to be everybody's like, whoa,
Right.
But anyway, so the Stalions piece says when he resigned, we know that. The network of people that videotape the games. So the draft states that they used ticket information, film, which we're assuming means, cameras from inside the stadium, photographs and interviews to determine that Stalions had impermissibly scouted at least 13 future Michigan opponents on at least 58 occasions. He directed others to scout some opponents multiple times, blah, 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 blah. The part I wanted to touch on was the other involvement. Here we go. Investigators also allege that multiple team interns and at least one other full-time team employee knew about the scheme and participated in it. The draft says that Stalions led those individuals to believe that what they were doing was not against the rules. And again, throughout this, that part of the rule, the 11-6-1, the advanced scouting part, we still don't see any direct ties to allegations of that rule being broken and what the violation would be. The level 1, the Stalions, the part that's in here, which again, to anyone who has eyes, confirmed Connor Stalions was on the sideline of that Michigan State Central Michigan game.
The fact it took this long to get some sort of official confirmation is absolutely crazy.
Well, and to that point, we've been talking about how much worse this is probably going to be for Central Michigan than Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I know he was wearing the stupid, I don't remember if they were Ray-Ban or Google glasses with the whole thing is just so stupid. I know he was wearing those, but again, what we've been saying all along, and it continues to appear, and I know this is tough for people to grab onto, but he was there to help Central Michigan, not to advance scout Michigan State. A Central Michigan coach, quarterback coach, who has long been tied to this, was recently possibly was terminated longer, but we just found out. We don't know. Nothing is coming from Central on this.
Right.
They said, we're going to look into it and get to the bottom of it. And then it looks like they got to the bottom of it and then stopped talking. Yep. Right. Because here's what we know. And it says on here, Central Michigan coaching gear, wearing a bench pass and in a disguise. Now, Josh and I have talked about this, I think, literally on the last podcast. It's a little bit different for press because we have to go into an area individually. Right. But still, the team is submitting the names ahead of time of people that will be in the stadium. They are getting passes and verified to be able to get into the stadium. And Stalions' name wasn't on the list. We still don't know how the hell he got in. Whether Michigan State didn't verify, whether he used a fake name and a fake, we don't know how he got in. And again, clearly somebody at Central was coordinating with him because he was wearing not just the Central Michigan shirt you buy at Dick's Sporting Goods. He was wearing the coaching sideline gear. Yeah. Right. And then specifically the level 1 to Stalions, according to the draft state, Stalions' conduct seriously undermined or threatened the integrity of the NCAA collegiate model. That's probably the harshest terminology I saw.
Yeah, but that's still what bylaw is that?
Again, and this back to your reporting earlier.
What bylaw is that?
They seem to be connecting because again, I just read sending these advanced scouts, which again, we still haven't heard much about who the people are, the footage they got back, right? That rule itself was 30 years old, not put in place for competitive balance. It was a financial thing. They almost threw it out a couple years ago because it's outdated. Yeah. Because we've talked about this a million times. The stupidest thing about this scandal is you didn't need it. We have seen the 7-page document from 2018 that Ohio State used with every single Don Brown signal that they were able to get the footage from all 22 film and from TV broadcasts. That's the dumbest thing about this scandal is you didn't need to do it. It's just stupid. And the optics of it are horrible. And that, I think, speaks to undermined or threatened the integrity of the NCAA collegiate model, right? It's right. But nowhere in here do we hear violated this rule resulting in blank.
Right.
Yeah. So
I mean, the thing how I kind of describe that seriously undermine the integrity or whatever, it just feels like they're giving a level 1 catch-all for all of the things that he did. Just obviously the Central Michigan thing, which is not related to Michigan. That's a whole different thing that they're going to have to figure out on their own.
Yeah.
The scouting operation.
It's egregious. There's no way around it. It's egregious.
Right. Well, it's
Absolutely.
stupid. Yeah, it's stupid.
I do think he thought he was in some sort of gray area.
Yeah.
I bet that's what he's going to say in this documentary on Netflix that's coming up.
Right.
About how he thought he was finding, a bend around the rule or whatever. But
right. It's like, they haven't charged him with something specific. They kind of just charged him with, okay, well, you did this, 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 and this. So we're going to give you a level 1 for all of it and not a specific charge necessarily. I don't know. It's weird. Like it's that again, it's, the whole wording of, that sentence. It's like, they're not like integrity obviously is, it's a legit charge, there's integrity of the game and that's legitimate, but it's not a specific punishment. It's
and from what we can tell from the older draft that ESPN is working with, that's a level 1 for Stalions and a show cause, which is what we expected for him, right? Like he's not going to be in college football ever again. Like that's just
it would be insane to even have him do that. And like the thing with Harbaugh too, it's like Harbaugh's never coming back to coach college football. He's not going to coach anywhere in college other than Michigan. So like this, for him, a show cause is like a slap on the wrist. I mean, he can't come back to campus for, what if it ends up being punishable by a show cause, he can't come to campus. He can't associate himself with Michigan for, I don't know, it's going to be years at this point. It could be 1 year, it could be 2 years. They could go harsh and say 5 years. I mean, we don't really know what show cause. There's no precedence of what these punishments are. So, you've seen a guy get a 1 year show cause. You've seen a guy get 3 year show cause. It just kind of varies. And we don't really.
I mean, the worst one I can think of off the top of my mind was Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee.
Yeah. How many years was that? Wasn't that like
he got 6?
Wow. 6. Okay. That's a long, I mean,
but that was literally the entire time he was at the program, paying cash for recruits and just, extensive the entire time he was running his program. Right. And Tennessee got out of a lot of that by, they terminated and the staff was gone. And that was kind of their whole thing. Like, whatever. And then when more recruiting violations came up again, it just didn't get grouped together. But
I mean, it's still, again, like it's turned into,
lack of institutional control is it's obviously not a Michigan fan. That's fine. Lack of institutional control is a thing. Nothing screams innocence like refusing to cooperate. I always love that thing too. Because somebody didn't want to turn over their cell phone, that means they were guilty. Look, again, the text messages getting deleted is terrible. It looks bad, but then they received those texts and didn't find anything. So he'll be punished for deleting them. Right. A lot of mental gymnastics, talk yourself into nothing to see here. Nobody's saying nothing to see here. And again, if lack of institutional control is included in this NOA draft, we would be talking about it because that would be a
lack of institutional control is a bylaw, is a charge.
Right. So the closest thing we saw. Go ahead, Josh, while I pull this up.
No, there's no. That's just made up. That's just someone saying that. It's if it's in the NOA, that's what they're being charged with. There's no mention. There's never been a mention of lack of institutional control. Yeah. So that would be
closest thing was the level 1 against the school for a pattern of non-compliance within the football program.
Right. And yeah, and then, you can just, I mean, yeah, like, okay, but then, you can also circle back and go, well, those people aren't here anymore. So, how do you, I don't know.
Well, yeah. And, the terminology, of the cover up being worse than the crime or whatever. This is so much different because we still, other than what we said about Stalions scheme itself, it's not even necessarily the cover up. It's just them saying to the NCAA, like, you're supposed to bring us what you have. Right. You know what I mean? Because this started with other schools complaining and blah, 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 and evidence. And then they're coming and they want to investigate, which they're absolutely allowed to do. And let's be clear. Michigan did cooperate. It's not that they didn't cooperate at all, right? They handed over the servers and documents. They allowed them to come in. They interviewed every player. They interviewed all the coaches. They've done tons of interviews, which it even references the stuff they got from. So look, did Harbaugh basically give them the middle finger? It absolutely appears he did, right? Yeah. And did some other coaches potentially? We don't know because, like, here, the level 1 violations, Chris Partridge, again, was for the telling a player what to say during the interview, which, to be clear, you know why the NCAA knows that happened? The player told them.
Yeah.
Right. So that player didn't do anything or mislead them. Right. Denard Robinson, recruiting violations. Right. And then Connor Stalions, we've talked about his level 1 being assessed below and going to the sideline. And then Minter is mentioned and Steve Klingscaler mentioned again for recruiting violations, level 2. And my God, dude, like, Jesse Minter texted a sophomore and Steve Klingscale helped a player get his Instagram verified and then donated $100 to a golf charity that was connected to the father of one of the recruits.
Yeah, I mean,
and again, I know self-reporting versus the NCAA finding it, that's a difference, right? You self-report, nobody cares. They found it and it makes it worse. But, like,
right.
Again, that had nothing to do with Stalions. They're just throwing these extra things in there. And especially the COVID era stuff. Like, you telling nobody the burgers, all that stuff. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, look, it's, am I surprised with anything that came out today? No. Am I surprised that there's still zero link to Stalions' operation to anyone in Michigan? No. All of that was kind of expected. Now, what does this mean moving forward is kind of a whole different question because all of this stuff is so unprecedented. I don't think you can even compare this to Burgergate in terms of how quickly things were wrapped up. It kind of felt like on Michigan's behalf, they kind of just wanted the Burgergate stuff to go away. They were like, yeah.
Well, they had already self-imposed.
Yeah, we have
most of the punishments. They agreed to the resolution, so that's why that went so quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the recruiting restrictions had already occurred in the fall.
Right.
The coaches had already been suspended a game. So they get the probation, and that was basically the only thing new in the burger stuff.
Right. So, like, the worst part of all of this is the lack of cooperation with the NCAA. That's kind of what this has turned into now. It's hasn't really turned. I mean, Connor, I'm separating Stalions from Michigan because obviously Michigan, the only lone really guy involved in this now is Sharon, and even then it was just deleted text messages from the day of him finding out about the story. So,
and again, that says a level 2. The ESPN report suggests a possible suspension and show cause for him, which I know you brought up the repeat offender thing, so maybe that's how they're trying to push that.
I don't know how they can give an active head coach a show cause from repeat offending level 2 violations. That would be
that would basically mean they put him on probation.
Yeah,
realistically, but that one feels a little weird to me. But
yeah, so I don't know. I would be stunned if anything happens this season, or this year, I should say, because we're in August right now.
Yeah.
And to be clear, Michigan hasn't received an NOA. This is a draft. This isn't an official document. So the timeline, the clock has not started yet. When Michigan gets that NOA in its hand, the 90-day clock starts to tick of Michigan having to respond. And, they may take 90 days. They may take 30 days.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you go the full 90 days and you get it, say, next week, you're talking mid-November at this point. So, and that's just to respond. And that's not even,
right.
The NCAA.
We're talking summer next year before. Yeah.
So I still don't see anything being resolved in 2024, the football season and the year. This is going to go on into 2025, and who knows, even beyond. I
hope it's not another slow drip, man. Like, I know some rival fans push back on when I said this, and I get it. Okay, but in the last few weeks, but part of the past year, just last week, Kentucky was able to be investigated, receive a notice of allegations, respond, get the response from the NCAA, go before the COI, come to a resolution on those players being paid and wins being vacated because they played ineligible players in 2021. Right. All of that occurred with nobody knowing about it. Mm-hmm. No NOAs getting leaked, no constant. Now, look, the story itself, when it got leaked, came out, I got it. But and Michigan continues to say, we continue to cooperate. We don't have a comment at this time because they're not allowed to comment. At some point, I say comment. Like, how many times does this stuff have to get leaked out and the narrative set and you don't say anything? Yeah. Like, if I'm Michigan at some point, I'm like, what is going on here? What kind of investigation is this? Where, like, drafts of NOAs are getting, like, it's crazy.
Well, I don't know how many slow drips they have left, to be honest with you. I mean,
and I know people have joked about stuff's going to come out the week of the Texas game and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just,
I don't know what more they can possibly come out with everything that they've laid out. I mean, it's pretty, I mean, they've laid out everything pretty clear here in this whole draft. I don't know what else they could do. I mean, I don't know what else could come out from this. Other than Michigan responding and whatever, but
I've got it on the screen, so I want to hit this real quick. The last pieces of the coaches, because again, you're seeing headlines about NOA on Stalions, 7 coaches involved, right?
Yeah.
Partridge, Clayscale, Denard Robinson. It was all I hate that word so much. Impermissible benefits to recruits in 23. So this was obviously not from the COVID stuff. This is while they're investigating another time where they picked up a recruit's meal, right? Providing recruits with team gear. That one, what? Yeah. I really need to know more about that because every recruit gets team gear.
Yeah, I know. I can explain that if you want.
Okay. Because we always make a big deal about, like, oh, he's wearing these gloves. Like, they all get what?
Yeah, some of the team gear that they get on visits, they have to return it after. Like, if the team issued, like, if it's, a November
jersey
game
or something?
No, like the stuff that they, like, let's say it's a November game or whatever, and it's cold and they wear jackets.
They give them a big puffy coat. Okay.
They give them a big puffy coat. They got to return the puffy coat after. They got to give it back. They can't keep it. So basically they're being accused of letting kids keep the gear where they have to buy it, from the M-Den in the stadium or on stage.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, dude, they get shoes, they get all kinds of gear all the time. So
there's some stuff that, I mean, obviously they give away shoes to recruits during camp, the MVPs at camp or whatever, they give shoes to. And obviously, I mean, they do sell gloves. So that's part of it too. But I mean, that part would be, that would go over in a fart in church, if this was any other day. Like if this never happened, this stuff would be like, oh, okay, whatever. Like this would be the self-reported stuff that would kind of just fly over.
Our good buddy Richie retweeted about Minter and Partridge texting a recruit who's a sophomore, and he's like 90% of coaches do this.
Yeah.
Right. So again, I know there's a difference between self-reporting and them finding out whether it was an honest mistake or whatever. Obviously, they're trying to build this pattern, you know, and I get the difference there. And again, when the NCAA is in your house, you know, you need to be extra careful. So,
right. Well, they're gonna, if they want to find something, they'll find it.
Yeah.
But in this scenario, like they found things that weren't even related to the actual investigation. I mean, like this thing has gone so far away from the genesis of this investigation. It's just become ridiculous. Like this has gone so far from you know, the in-person scouting or whatever. It's gone and evolved into this thing of like just trying to find whatever they can find at this point. And you know, the charges of not investigating, or excuse me, and not cooperating with the investigation is not great. But I think I don't even know. I don't even know what to think at this point, because like everything that's come out is things that we knew that the NCAA did or did not have. And the big takeaway is that they still can't link anyone to Stalions' operation with physical evidence. I mean, yeah, I mean, people, is it safe to say that people probably knew about this? Of course, that's ridiculous to say like no one literally knew about this. But when you don't have evidence to back that up, it's like,
well, and again, Stalions' job was to steal signs. He did it the same way every other program does it, watching all 22, watching broadcast film, and sharing information between other sign stealers from other schools, right? So if the coaches didn't think he was doing that, I would believe that for the same reason I said, which is, why would you do it? There's nothing to gain from it. It's stupid. But yeah, anyway, Michael, first off, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Appreciate that.
You don't have to do that. We appreciate it. But
absolutely.
Do I have to click something here at the top, Josh?
What do you mean?
It's like his name has like a time dial on it. I don't know what.
Oh, no.
Okay. I don't know what that's about.
That's just for us.
Weird. Okay. Anyway, so Mike, fair question. Putting on our most biased negative hats. What part of this is most dangerous? Can the level 1 violation against Michigan result in vacated wins? So the most dangerous part, in my belief, is the level 1 specifically to the school.
Yeah.
And that talks about the consistent lack of cooperation.
Yep.
And what they feel like was an effort to, I don't remember the exact terminology. I don't want to lie. I don't remember if it was not block the investigation, but make sure I read this so I'm accurate here. In institutional efforts to hinder or thwart the NCAA. So in a real court setting, a version of obstruction of justice, I guess. Right. So
yeah,
that's, you know, that to me, that's the most dangerous part, because that's the closest part that gets into that institutional term, like something, it no longer individual acts, right? The Stalions stuff, again, until I see otherwise, the way that the draft is reported by ESPN, the Stalions stuff is very much pegged on him individually.
Right.
What's pegged on Harbaugh, very individual. Again, not his involvement, but he should have known. More for deleting the text is listed as a level 2. The recruiting stuff, again, level 2, very much on the individual. All of that to say, none of that results in vacated wins. What we just saw with Kentucky was it 11 players?
Yeah. 11
players were ruled ineligible, and that was the vacated wins.
Yeah, so and I've seen that. I'm glad you mentioned that, Trevor, because I've seen that being discussed. Like, oh, well, Kentucky just had wins vacated, and do they have a bowl ban? They had a bowl ban. You know, because and the coaches didn't know.
That was just probation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the connection they were trying to reach, was the NCAA specifically said the coaches did not know about it.
Yeah. So, and yeah, the NCAA is saying the coaches did not know about this thing with Stalions, but when you're dealing with ineligible players, that's a totally different can of worms, whether the coaches knew or not. I think part of this scheme was trying to find out who else was involved and how deep it ran, and I think that was part of the in-person scouting investigation. That was what they were trying to figure out. So in a way, the coaches not knowing is an important piece to this. And yeah, the NCAA can still levy punishments, regardless whether the coaches knew or not. How they're, they found multiple recruiting violations and, the lack of cooperation. But yeah, I mean, in this part, I think it's pretty important to say that, yeah, the coaches had no idea. Well, it wasn't proved that the coaches had no idea this was going on.
Right.
I can't sit here with a straight face and say no one knew, but they can't prove it. And I think that's important, is an important piece here that is not comparable to the Kentucky thing, because, playing ineligible players, that's where you get the vacated wins, the bigger punishments. So, I mean, as far as I'm aware, Michigan did not have any ineligible players the last 3 years that they played. So, obviously that's not even in the, it's not even part of the discussion. Obviously it's not in the draft or whatever. So, I know people are saying they're trying to compare it, but I think it's an important piece to mention in it that, this is what they were trying to prove, whether they knew or not. So now you can kind of, build off that. And,
the thing is, though, even if they did prove they knew, you're still at this argument of conspiracy and integrity, and you still have not proven that the activities they did violated a law that resulted in Michigan winning games they shouldn't have. Right? Yeah. Like that's been this next step. And again, I understand if I'm a rival fan, how this makes you feel and how egregious and gross the entire thing is. But it goes back to what the value of it. The NCAA itself has said no competitive advantage, that this rule is outdated. It's from a time period when teams had to pay, 1994, teams had to pay people to go with these giant cameras to record the games. And the reason it's outdated is because teams can now get that information because every game is broadcast and all 22 and whatever, right? And if the sign stealing part is what bothers you, then you should be really upset about all the other sign stealing that occurs and the coordination between teams. We know Michigan's signs were stolen and shared ahead of the Big Ten championship game against Purdue, for instance, right? Like, yeah, that's where, and that's the media, when this stuff got released, labeling it as a sign stealing scandal, right? Most fans shouldn't have to be reading the NCAA bylaw book to figure this out, right? Like, so they kind of labeled it in a way that's been confusing, but like, more on the vacated wins. Arizona State, most recently Herm Edwards, ineligible players recruiting. Kentucky, Mark Stoops, we just talked about it. Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt, ineligible players. Missouri, ineligible players. Ole Miss, ineligible players. The only recent instance, and by recent I mean in like the modern era since like SMU, right? Like, was what happened at Penn State, which was the most wins ever vacated. Yeah. 112 as a result of the child sex abuse scandal. And the logic behind that was it was so pervasive, involving the head, not the acts, be clear, right? Jerry Sandusky, right? But the lack of action from the head coach to administrators, athletic directors, presidents, people who ended up in jail, yeah, for their roles in it. The idea was you put the safety of children below winning football games, so you don't deserve to have those wins anymore, right? Yeah. That was the step that they took. It was we want to make every program in the country look in and go, look, winning football games can't matter more than this, right? All of those wins have been restored. And postseason ban and that kind of stuff, the NCAA has said they really don't want to be in the business of punishing players now for things they weren't involved in that had nothing to do with them, right? So an ineligible player playing, players on that team are punished, and that's not fair, but life's not fair, right? But summer understanding 2025, Michigan getting some kind of postseason ban for 25 when 20% of the roster was on the team. That's just not something the NCAA has shown any urge to do. And again, the vacating wins part, if they have any path to it, they sure haven't outlined that, right? This is all about their conduct in the investigation, which to me means individual punishment, which means a massive fine for the school, which probably, because there's more recruiting stuff, we're going to see more recruiting restrictions. I don't know if it would be scholarships. They just went from 85 to over 100. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And with NIL and stuff, I don't know if it would be scholarships. It'd probably be activity, more like what the coaches are allowed to do, and obviously how much they would have to report back to the NCAA while they're on probation, what they've been doing. You know, I could see that. And again, a massive fine seems especially that level 1 on Michigan for their impeding of the investigation. A massive fine seems there. But look, vacating wins, taking the natty away, there's just nothing there, in my opinion.
Well, and I think the big thing that Michigan's got going for them is you've got the president of the NCAA publicly saying that Michigan won the national championship fair and square. And if you believe that if that were an option to be taken away, you best believe that Michigan's going to go to take that to court and be like, hey, look, the leader of this organization said this, and you're trying to, I just don't think that would float in a court of law. And I'm not even suggesting it's even ever going to go that route of taking away the wins and vacating the national championship.
I've just never seen that happening. Well, and we've talked about too, and counteract to my previous point about the leaks and everything in Michigan, what they had to deal with. And, Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, frankly, caving to pressure from other Big Ten programs to suspend Harbaugh or to punish Michigan by suspending Harbaugh. Let's be clear. He even said that they weren't suspending Jim. They were punishing Michigan. Right. And, Michigan State talking about player safety and all that whole hoopla and that massive distraction in what happened in Michigan in the middle of their national championship season, because they won it all, in a weird way, has done Michigan a favor. Because now they can say, okay, Stalions was fired. Everyone knew it was out in the open. We won these games without Jim Harbaugh, right? Like everything that we dealt with, that's what led to the NCAA commissioner saying, hey, they won fair and square. Nobody can say they didn't, because all of this happened in the season. The Big Ten closed its investigation already with their settlement with Michigan in regards to the sign stealing portion. So the advanced scouting, there's me being a hypocrite calling it sign stealing. So look, had Michigan lost and then all of this stuff kind of fade down, yeah, it'd be really, really, really frustrating. But because they won it all, i.e., how many times have I brought up Deflategate in the Patriots, right?
Yeah.
And the way that thing kind of flamed out.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Michigan winning the national championship helped them in that regard. Like they can't say, oh yeah, they lost because this was uncovered and derailed and not, but I don't know. I struggle to find anything new in here that makes me want to change my mind about the trajectory of things.
Right.
I mean, you're asking the NCAA to do a lot with these level 1s against individuals. the lack of cooperation or whatever. And to go back to Michael's question, what the most dangerous part of this is, for me personally, it's how the NCAA interprets the repeat offender moniker that they used for
more
potential for Sharon Moore. Because technically, with Burgergate and everything too, Harbaugh's a repeat offender by not cooperating with the NCAA. I mean, he was probably less cooperative about the burger stuff than he was with this current investigation.
100%.
Clearly. But I mean, there's still levels to his non-cooperation, like giving up his personal cell phone and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Michigan was kind of the opposite, right?
Right.
That was kind of Harbaugh's frustration, is we saw Michigan being very forthcoming and borderline apologetic to the frustration of many Michigan fans.
Yeah.
Because that was frankly a lot more cut and dry. The burger stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, there was absolutely, I mean, there's no...
The recruiting violations. I'm not trying to... The reason we say the burger thing is because they literally, that's what it was. They gave him half off and they bought him a dinner, but like...
Yeah, that was actual...
I know it's multiple recruiting violations. I'm not trying to minimize it too much, but it's been called Burgergate.
Clearly, an area where they couldn't weasel out of that one. I mean, the burger stuff, I mean... they knew they were caught, and whether they wanted to cooperate or not, or admit they cooperated or not, is another thing in itself. But that was one of those things where Michigan was like, yeah, we effed up, like, here, this is what we can do to kind of make this go away. And and the NCAA was like, yeah, this is, this stuff can suffice, this is good, and here's a couple of little extra small things. But this one doesn't seem as cut and dry to me, just because of the fact that you've got a lack of cooperation on multiple coaches. Like, what does that look like? How is that interpreted by the NCAA, and how does Michigan argue against it? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, because, and then, if it gets into the bowl ban thing, okay, now Michigan makes the playoffs and the CFP is a completely different entity.
Yeah.
How does that factor into the whole thing? I don't know. But look, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, because there's no new information, at least if you pay attention to people that have been covering this thing, not just us either. I mean, there's plenty of people out there who have, covered this thing. Isaiah Hull too has been on top of it and been a really good source of information on this thing. So, it's if you've been paying attention to all of this stuff, it shouldn't come as a surprise that there has been no tangible, like, widespread evidence that this is like the worst scandal in college football history, like we've been led to believe by some people. So is it good? No, of course not. I mean, like, yeah, you would like to see people not delete text messages, even if it's whatever the content, if it was innocent or not. Yeah, you don't have links to it, but yeah, you'd rather not have a guy go rogue in your program like that and scoop up some unsuspecting interns and all that stuff. And you'd obviously don't want to see recruiting violations and stuff. So I don't, where is this going to go? When is this going to happen? I mean, yeah, again, we're still talking about a draft that could change and stuff could be taken out. I don't see a scenario where stuff.
Very confident that in what I reported earlier, that this is an old draft. So who knows what we're building off of, but
yeah. So, I mean, they got to, the Michigan's got to get the NOA first. So, I mean, until then, it's all just speculation and we're dealing with a draft. It's a draft, a rough draft.
And last thing on Moore, the show cause part of it, that doesn't mean anything to him while he's at Michigan. right? Like, again, there's probably probation tied to that, but the show cause would really only be impactful if he left Michigan, was fired by Michigan, and then another program tried to hire him.
Right.
That's the point of the show cause, is that program then would have to essentially justify to the NCAA why they're hiring him during that 1 year period or whatever the show cause is. So like Jim Harbaugh, Jesse Minter, Klingscale, Partridge, these folks that are no longer at Michigan, no longer in the NCAA, if they receive any sort of show cause, it's a deterrent to the college programs to hire that person until that goes away, right? Could he be suspended? Absolutely. And then you're right with that repeat violator. What kind of accelerant does that do? I don't know, and I'm not going to guess on it because,
right,
like we've joked over since September, October, or whatever, I'm out of the guessing business when it comes to this stuff. So Zinter said, I'm curious if any of the 52 text messages matter enough to show up in the actual NOA. Interesting that he felt the need to delete them the very day the story broke. So to be clear, what was reported wasn't that he deleted text the day the story broke. What was reported was he deleted the texts from the day the story broke.
He sent texts on the day the story broke. He didn't delete texts on the day he sent texts.
Correct.
That he ended up deleting. It's all in the article.
Yeah, and then a device was used to recover the texts, and Moore turned them over to the NCAA. The NCAA didn't come into them by them trying to recover them. They were recovered and turned over by Sharon Moore, and that was labeled a level 2 violation.
Yep.
And again, if I'm going out on a limb here, an assumption, then feel free to tell me. But if there was anything incriminating in those text messages, I believe they would have been included in this reporting, since so much of, especially the way the reporting has come out.
Right.
This is purely my opinion. I don't know why he deleted them or felt whatever he got. Maybe he got freaked out. I don't know. But because the thread came from the day the news broke, that leads me to believe, and the NCAA seems to have not found anything incriminating in him. That leads me to believe Moore was texting him, dude, what the hell is going on? What were you doing?
That would be an assumption.
True?
That would be the assumption to make.
Why are we hearing about this?
Right.
That, if I'm texting the day of a 52 text thread, and those texts are now in the NCAA's hand and nothing connected him to it, that's my assumption. Again, is deleting the text stupid? Yeah, probably, right? Was what Partridge did stupid? Yep. Is it frustrating? Probably, having the NCAA in your business and this attitude we talk about all the time, that the head coach and how that trickles down through the program. Look, Jim Harbaugh has had an antagonist attitude against the NCAA almost his entire time here. He's been very frustrated by what he felt was, inaction and unbalance in the administration of some rules, especially when it came to recruiting and things the SEC was doing. When he did the summer camps and they moved immediately to get rid of that. And let's talk about the most obvious things. NIL. Harbaugh was a front-facing leading proponent of that, right? Not only has that been approved, granted, not because the NCAA thought it was the right thing to do, it's because it took legal and court action, right? But he was right. The transfer rule and the freedom of transfer, Jim Harbaugh was the leader in pushing for that. And again, it took the courts to tell the NCAA they were wrong, but that is now here. And guess what? The big one, revenue sharing. And the call out of, hey, we're getting $100 million for this TV contract. You telling me we can't share this? Blah, blah, blah. And once again, the courts agreed. Right. So am I surprised that when the NCAA came asking Harbaugh, hey, you remember taking these guys to buy a cheeseburger? That his response would have been like, no. And are you kidding me? Get the hell out.
Yeah.
Does that mean it should have been? That's up to you. Did other coaches on the staff potentially have this feeling of, I texted a kid when he was a sophomore. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm sure they did. I'm sure that attitude trickled down from Harbaugh to the other coaches and has led to a lot of this non-compliance and that vibe of telling the NCAA to get bent, basically.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked that was the vibe within the program. So, just at full-time I don't remember if employee was the term. Do we know the one full-time staffer that also had knowledge of Stalions? That just means they were paid versus the interns, right? So a college team's obviously going to have a lot of people around. We've talked about the playbooks and putting the binders together and that assist with things. Trying to find the exact terminology. Yeah, it says one full-time team employee. That's so vague.
That is incredibly vague. That could mean literally the dude that cleans the jock straps.
Right.
So incredibly vague. Because a team employee does not suggest a coach.
If it was a coach, it'd be in the reporting.
Right. It doesn't even suggest that it's a staffer, like an analyst.
Yeah, that's why I want to me, staffer would imply somebody more closely connected to the football program in terms of preparation on the field, whatever.
Yeah.
Employee is so vague.
When I think of full-time employee, I think of someone like on the recruiting staff or someone that maybe even like an analyst type of role, but not like a front-facing analyst, like someone like I'm just throwing a name out here. Like Pernell McPhee is like a big time analyst that's going to be coaching. It's like I don't get the sense like that's who they're referring to. So like a lower level analyst.
Well, because again, if I'm reporting this story or if I'm the NCAA and that was what I was looking for, was that connection, it would be hammered more. So again, I'm not saying it's not. Look, that is the first time we've seen mention of someone who can be deemed an employee of Michigan being connected. Yeah, that part of it, yes, right. That's the step that's taken. Yeah, that's a good point. It's going to be someone like Stalions, someone we've never heard of before. Yeah, anybody know who Connor Stalions was before any of this broke, right?
Yeah, right.
But I think I would imagine. I'd imagine it's much lower than Stalions, though.
To know who Connor Stalions was before.
Yeah, Stalions is on the sideline because, again, he's the sign stealer and he's talking to coaches and stuff. So I'd imagine if it was anybody at that level, we would hear more about it. But
yeah. So look, I don't. We just gotta wait to see what the actual NOA says, but I don't expect it to be that big of a variation from what we got now. I think this is I wouldn't say best case scenario. Obviously, the best case scenario is not having one at all, but I think Michigan
we knew there was going to be some recruiting stuff. There's quite a bit.
Right. I think Michigan got off relatively tame of what it could have been. The only thing that gives me pause is the Burgergate, probation and all that stuff. Do they kind of say, hey, you're a repeat offender, even though it's kind of the two investigations almost coincide with each other? So I don't know I couldn't even begin to tell you what potential punishments would look like. But if you're talking just, I don't know, it's tough. I don't know. It's unprecedented because there's no precedents to any of this. There's people that don't cooperate with the NCAA all the time, but it doesn't seem, at least to me, that the punishments are severe. So to even discuss or even try to broach into punishment territory it's just a lot of assumption right now.
Yeah.
But I
think it's fair to say, though, the only thing fans care about is probably the vacating wins and the obviously stripping the national title or something. But again, nothing here goes down that path. It's very much on Stalions, and even Michigan, the only part Michigan's being labeled with is the failure to cooperate part. So
right, yeah, that seems to be the worst of it. So I don't know, man.
I don't know. The precedents for advanced scouting, not like this, right? So there is an instance of an assistant coach being on the sideline of a game against an opponent. And they were small fine and suspended for a half. Right. So if Stalions incident against Central or with the Central Michigan game was isolated to literally just that, he would have been fired and we never would have heard a thing about it again, probably because he was a lower staffer. Or maybe there would have been a small fine. You know, the fact that, I mean, that coach was not trying to hide who he was, where Stalions, again, we still don't know the details of what length they went to get him in there. Because he was not on the roster of names approved. We don't know if Michigan State didn't identify him when he received his pass. We don't know if a fake name was used or no name was used. If he used somebody else's pass. And again, the term disguise, I mean, we kind of it became a meme when that came out.
Yeah.
When you saw him, like, what in the world are you doing, dude? Like,
yeah. Even with everyone was like, everyone that I talked to, I was like, yeah, that was him. And I'm like, how is this taking this long to figure out? I mean, yeah, I get like Central wanting not to be so blazing and be like, yeah, this is him. But again, I want to reiterate too. That's a Central Michigan problem. This is not a Michigan problem. So
yeah, if it wasn't, they'd be very forthcoming with what happened.
Yeah, exactly. So this has nothing to do with Michigan's current investigation. That's going to be another. And the funny thing is, Central might get in more trouble than Michigan might. Like, all things considered, at the end, like this might be more serious than what Michigan is getting charged with. Maybe.
Well, the reporting is pretty, with the I know his name's out there. I'm not going to say it because there's really no point. But the former Michigan assistant who worked at Central that was fired, I mean, the reporting is pretty much suggested he wasn't cooperating at all, and maybe Central was being proactive in the same way Michigan did with some of their, with what they did with Stalions by terminating him.
Yeah.
Ahead of time to avoid any type of perception or punishment like that from Central. But again, the Central Michigan State relationship, I mean, that's very fragmented, right? Again, I don't want to say Michigan State's role, but like if there was something they could have done to prevent, like how that part happened would be interesting to know.
Yeah.
But I mean, they paid what? How much money do you pay for a game like that? Like $1 million?
Yeah.
You pay Central to come play you, and they're letting a dude on the sideline who works for Michigan help Central against Michigan State and potentially wearing these stupid little glasses. Like,
could you imagine if Central won that game? Could you imagine like the bigger, I mean, the outrage, the rightful outrage that Michigan State would have had if they lost that game and that he was on the sidelines. I mean, I think Michigan State should get that money back and then some. I mean, they had a legitimate gripe. I mean, I'm not saying that.
Again, it's egregious.
Michigan State and their fans absolutely have a right to be pissed off about this, and a lot of it is inward as well. Like, how do they allow this to happen? But at the same time, how Central was even going to do this? I think Michigan State absolutely has a gripe, and their fans have a gripe, but. This whole thing is just incredibly dumb. The whole thing.
That's the part I can't get over.
All of it is stupid.
But yeah, again, the efforts they went to literally get him the sideline year to, again, however they got him in, whether
that's way more egregious than anything that Michigan's being accused of. Like in that draft. I mean, yeah, like there's some dumb recruiting violations and stuff, but to knowingly have someone else's staff, I mean,
and nobody else, like so far the one player, or excuse me, the one, the QB coach was terminated, but like there's multiple people near him during that game. Like,
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I know there's a lot of folks on a sideline during a game, but like, I just can't believe like nobody was like, dude, who's Groucho Marx over here? Like this. And the fact that he had his Jordans or Nikes on when they're in Adidas school, that was one of the ways they knew it was just so.
You can say that. I mean, you can say the same thing about Michigan. You can say the same thing about Central. Even if they had no proof that anyone in the program outside of obviously their QB coach that had knowledge, someone had to have known. In Michigan too, like even though they can't prove that someone knew or that anyone knew or that anyone was involved, someone knew. Like this isn't, they knew this was happening, but chose to play ignorant to the fact. And I would not be surprised if Central Michigan is very similar to that someone they knew but played dumb and obviously didn't want evidence.
Well, it's kind of a similar situation to Michigan, though. Okay, you have this much information. Why am I going to give you the rest?
Yeah.
Do what you're allowed to do to find it. But you're not getting my cell phone.
Right.
Who are you? I don't work for you. Right. Yeah. And I think that's what's happening is like, hey, we gave you the roster of names. He wasn't on it. Right. I don't know. And we fired this guy because he didn't cooperate with you. But hey.
This obviously isn't a Central Michigan podcast, but I get the sense that McElwain's gonna get fired here if they stink this year. I think he'll be one of the first coaches let go if they get off to like a horrible start, even if they even if they're like a sub 500 team. I don't think he'll survive. So whatever. It is what it is. But from Central Michigan has way more egregious evidence than Michigan had. Than Michigan.
Yeah, we've seen for sure.
Wild. I've seen the evidence that Central Michigan has, and I'm not talking about Connor on the sidelines. I mean, that's the biggest evidence of them all. But they have hard drives of like documents saying Stalions MSU scout, like
right,
like on
And again, Michigan State fans, you should be absolutely mad about that, but understand what Central was doing was using Stalions' activity to benefit. He was there as the sign stealer to benefit them against you. It wasn't Michigan sending him there for more scouting against you. Maybe that doesn't matter to a Michigan State fan, but I mean, that's just the reality of it. I mean, he was being an independent contractor, if you will.
Right.
At that point. So Michael brought up something that I started to talk about and I kind of forgot or trailed off. And, it's pretty clear someone in the NCAA is leaking information intended to damage Michigan. Releasing a draft of an NOA is classic mudslinging without actually committing to accusations. Like I started to say this earlier about Michigan, and maybe Michigan feels like they have leverage in the long term for how this plays out. And they don't want to jeopardize any of that. And that's why they're issuing these non-statement statements because they're not allowed to comment on an investigation. Maybe it's got to be a lawyer that does it, but like at some point it's got to come out like this is crazy, right? Why are these things getting out? Why is ESPN, specifically Pete Thamel, every single time the one able to have this well-timed, again, what appears to be, what is for sure a draft of an NOA, a draft, meaning it's not final. And from what I've gotten from multiple sources, an old draft is out there. When Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida State, all this past year have been able to be investigated, receive NOA, go through the board, the entire process without anybody knowing a thing about it. And then it's one news dump, one understanding, and then they get to move on. Michigan's been punished in many ways by having to deal with, and again, in some ways it kind of rewarded them for last year. They can say, look, we lived through this in the moment. You suspended our coaches. We had, I've talked to multiple players about it and how that was affecting them in the locker room. You could argue it helped them in some ways. It gave them that little extra chip on their shoulder or whatever. But yeah it's just, I don't know, annoying. Annoying is the right word. And again, like I said, I've seen rival fans push back, well, if you didn't do it, then you wouldn't have to worry about it leaking and blah, blah, blah. Sure. But like, shouldn't they get the same benefit every other program does at minimum? You know, this, again, you guys want to pretend this is a court and use legal terms, you know, about the innocent before guilty, you know, all that, whatever. You know, there's just, Michigan has rights in this. And they also have rules they have to follow from a standpoint of not commenting and blah, blah, blah. They're not, and they're just constantly dealing with these leaks. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in the camp that I don't really necessarily care about the leaks because it's information that's coming out anyway. And these leaks haven't really, I mean, yeah, they're annoying. Obviously, the timing is annoying. Like how the slow drips kind of have morphed from, you know, this is the worst scandal in sports to what it is now. I don't necessarily.
I guess that's my point. We live in a post-fact world, man.
Yeah, true.
And that narrative of the worst scandal in sports, look at what people are tweeting today.
Right.
They're not reading the article and they're somehow vindicated. Like, see,
well,
they
people,
proved Michigan did that. It doesn't say that.
People are taking bits and pieces out of context and running with it. I mean, they've done that.
Which they're going to do anyway. I understand. Right. But like somebody asked me, can't you get a public request? Yeah, you absolutely can. To give you an idea, Detroit News, Angelique, credit to them, right? It took them 9 months.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
To get the Burgergate NOA. And even then it had redactions in it.
Yeah, the whole process is ridiculous. It's so stupid.
So think about it. That's how protected. That's how protected this document is. It took 9 months to get the NOA from Burgergate, and it still came with redactions. And you've got somebody leaking the draft of it with no redactions.
Right. And I want to add on to what Ralph mentions here. Leaks could actually help Michigan prepare.
No, because they've seen it.
Right. Yes and no. Because yes, but Michigan.
I mean, let's be honest. There's a chance this leak came from somebody at Michigan too.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's why, and maybe that's why they're not pushing back on it.
I'm not sure I buy. I'm not sure.
I'm not saying I buy it, but I'm just saying it's probable. Like somebody at Michigan had this draft in their hands. It's possible. So
of course it's possible, but like I'm not sure. I feel like that's a little too tinfoily hatty for me. But
yeah, there's places you can find those conspiracies. That's for sure.
Right. Oh yeah. Absolutely. I don't think Michigan's getting blindsided by any of this. I mean, maybe some of the wording, maybe some of the phrasing they're being they're pushing back on, but the content of it all, they know what they're dealing with. They know what the NCAA has. They know what they've given to the NCAA. So yeah, you could prepare in some ways, but I don't think they're like for today, for example, I don't think they're reading that ESPN article and going, oh, okay, so this is what they have. No, it's like they knew the contents of this. You know, that people wouldn't be telling us like, hey, they don't have evidence against coaches and stuff. They wouldn't be telling us this stuff if they didn't know or at least weren't confident in that. So I guess from a preparation standpoint, I guess you can prepare like, I don't know if you were going to fight in court or whatever and be like, hey, this has been leaked this whole time. Like someone's leaking this stuff. I guess, but yeah, I don't know. It's
well, and even beyond the leaks of stuff like this, we had last year, the NCAA literally making statements.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean. So
a draft, and not a final product.
This is how I feel.
Needs to come out. It needs to come out. You can't have a draft come out. Not. I mean, the exact same document that has been leaked could very well be the actual document that is.
I do want to
received. So
to Dave's point. I bring up Pete Thamel only because he's clearly become somebody that the people that are leaking this stuff to trust to get it to, right? It's like, where's the stream of? But yeah, do I blame the media themselves for releasing it? No, that's a major story. Whoever gave that to them, of course, they're not going to say, I don't know if I feel comfortable. That's kind of mean to Michigan. No. Right. We've received information and reported on stories before the information for that story was out. That's our job. Right. I'm trying to think of Schembechler getting fired. Right. We reported on that first. Like we researched it. We had our sources. Like that's our job. Right. So it's more the slow drip. And look, I can nitpick the framing of the article too. I think that bothers me, but like they know people are going to read headlines in the first paragraph or two and whatever. That's the world we live in. And if I was on the other side of it, I've said that consistently too. I hope people know, like, if this was Ohio State, I understand, like, we'd probably feel differently about it, right? It's fun to see your rivals swim in this kind of stuff, right? So I get it. I was trying to think the last thing somebody had sent over to me, and I haven't been able to find it yet, but on the potential issues for more, and I completely forgot about this. That like Scott Frost was under show cause while he was at Nebraska.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah. 1 year show cause. And then he had a 5-day suspension.
It makes sense why he wasn't. Well, he still hasn't been.
Yeah.
Is he working and coaching anywhere?
No. There was rumors about him getting the Iowa OC job for a hot minute.
Man.
But yeah, that fall off's crazy, huh?
Yeah, that is like, yeah.
Well, and
hate to see it.
How vague do I want to be? All of his problems weren't on the field. And maybe that's well known throughout the coaching circles, right? I don't know. But yeah, he goes from Oregon OC and then the success he had down in Florida, and then he's Nebraska's Jim Harbaugh at that point. Hot coaching commodity coming back home. It, obviously doesn't work out. And now they've got Matt Rule and seem to be rolling and recruiting and a lot of optimism in Lincoln. So it's interesting how that can turn. So yeah, I'm still not feeling comfortable getting in the business of guessing what potentially more would see. I do tend to trust the Michigan people I talk to, that they, what you can assume and what you've heard, they obviously aren't too concerned. And to Josh's point earlier, Sherrone Moore would not be the head coach right now. Right. This is not news to Michigan, what was reported today. So, but
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even to like speculate about punishments and all that kind of stuff is crazy. No one really, again, seems concerned. I don't know. To even like, oh, that's funny that question just popped up. I didn't even see it.
Hey, David. Hope you're doing well. Hope the kids are good.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the very next step that needs to happen is the NCAA the NCAA giving the NOA to Michigan.
Right. Well, and again, if the only thing that's going to speed this process up is an agreed to resolution.
Yeah. I don't see that happening. I don't. There's no need to speed this up anyway.
No, unless the NCAA, again, in an updated draft and in conversations with Michigan, is willing to be like, all right, look, you fired Stalions. We're going to show cause him for 5 years, however many years. Okay. Harbaugh's gone. Vinter's gone. Klink's gone. This is what we're going to give them. Okay.
Yeah.
Look, more deleted the text. I know you gave them to us. Whatever. We got to do this repeat violator thing. Blah, blah, blah. Suspend him a game. I don't know. Again, I don't throw it out there, but like, unless it's something Michigan's like, okay, right, and willing to accept,
right,
in terms of restrictions, violations, why would they not take advantage of the full 90 days and not have this be a part of their football season as much as they possibly can?
Yeah.
And let it go to court and fight back and forth. And,
right.
The only thing Michigan gains from this being settled sooner is what happened with Burgergate,
right?
Which was the end of it, and they'd already satisfied the punishments.
Right. Unless there's a scenario where the NCAA completely caves and backs off, which is not going to happen. It doesn't behoove Michigan to speed this process up or to cave either. Michigan doesn't need to cave here. Unless there's
not when it comes to more. I think they've already shown.
Oh, absolutely.
I think they've already shown with Harbaugh that, like, look, the NCAA wants their meat from him, and as much as Michigan loves him and whatever, he's not here anymore. And if he doesn't want to cooperate, Michigan's going to go forward without him. That's what happened with the Burgergate negotiated settlement. Harbaugh's case has literally been separated from that. There will be more Harbaugh punishment and probably some long statement just dragging him through the mud, which is what the NCAA has always wanted.
Yeah.
And I don't think Michigan cares about that because they're ready to move forward and Harbaugh left. So
there's no sense. I just literally just posted this on our message boards too, because there was a similar comment that I just responded to, but there is no sense or there's no sense in fighting for people who aren't there anymore. Like, there's no sense for Michigan to fight for Harbaugh. He's gone. And let's be honest, he's not coming back to the college game. He's not. Jesse Minter, probably not a college guy. He's always felt like an NFL guy to me. The only guy that I think could come back to college is Klink.
Yeah.
But again, those three aren't worth fighting for right now because they're not with the program. They're off doing, they're off with in LA. So I think they should just, if anything, if Michigan caves on anything, it's to let the NCAA do whatever they want with the guys that aren't around with the program, like Denard, Connor, obviously, Jim, Klink, and Minter. All those guys should just let them, feed them to the sharks, so to speak, and let them, the NCAA, do what they want. But from like a current program standpoint, I think there's a lot less to fight for with a current program standpoint than there would be if you throw in everyone else into the mix that isn't here. So yeah, there's no sense in fighting for people who aren't here. So just you kind of have to see what happens, I guess. I mean,
well, and again, even the way the Stallion stuff is framed, right? If that bled into the punishment that was phrased for the school, or that that connected to more in a way that affects the current standing in your program, okay, there's a fight, right? But again, the Stallion stuff is very isolated to him and his conduct. The only real mention of that bleeding up was the fact that they said Harbaugh did not know, but maybe he ignored some red flags. Which, again, I'm not shocked to see. We've seen head coaches in the past be labeled in that way where, look, I mean, frankly, Jim Harbaugh's own words that he's quoted from Bo about you should, if you're the boss, you should know what's going on in the program, right? So but to me, that's very different than saying Michigan was involved in an advanced scouting scheme to cheat and win games, and the head coach was aware and part of it, which is what was basically being reported. And that's not what this is. We're still back to that point of like, this bylaw is, have we proven that? And they haven't. So, yeah. If you don't fight for former coaches, look, what Josh is saying is, I mean, Michigan did fight for Jim Harbaugh, and he chose not to be a part of anything of that settlement. That was a decision he made. Otherwise, they were fighting for him to an extent. Michigan doesn't need to self-implode their program for people that aren't here.
Right. Focus on what you have now. Focus on the players that are getting wrapped up into this that have no business being wrapped up into this. It's not about the current culture is what you have right now. You don't need to waste resources on someone that's not there.
And let's be clear, if the
Has nothing to do with
NCAA wants to
culture.
give Jesse Minter a 1-year show cause for sending a text to a sophomore, you're not dealing with a rational organization at that point.
Right.
You know,
he's not going to be back in like 2 years anyway. He's going to be in the NFL.
Clink helped a kid get his Instagram account verified.
Right. Yeah, Steve brings up a good point too. I mean, Harbaugh probably would more than for if it comes to protecting Michigan, Harbaugh would fall on the sword for it. Again, the NCAA can't do anything to him. He's in the NFL. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why you don't have to fight for Harbaugh, because he's not in the NCAA. He's not in college football anymore.
He also has his own lawyers and he's fighting for himself just fine.
Right.
So
it has nothing to do with a culture. It's common sense. Like, you don't need to do anything. You focus on the here and now and what you have. And, it's, and again, well, Keegan mentions here, what about Partridge? Same thing. He's in the NFL. He's with the Seahawks right now.
He's also suing Michigan.
Yeah, he's suing Michigan for is in the process of doing that for unlawful termination and whatever. He did that to himself. I'm sorry. That's, don't interfere with an NCAA investigation. Like, don't coach your players on what to say
when they're in the building.
Right, when they're in the building. Like, don't do that. I mean, yeah, you could say he got screwed and he was probably collateral damage, but don't do that. Like, I mean, and you can say this about this whole NCAA investigation. Like, don't do it. Like, if you feel like you're in the gray area, don't do it.
Steve just reminded me of something funny. I had a former boss who retired and then stopped by our store. This is when I was doing the retail or whatever, and he stopped by the store.
Circuit City?
This was not Circuit City. I was thinking about lying just to bring it up, but it wasn't Circuit City. And he was a hard ass, just a brutal freaking boss, man. And he showed up, and it was really weird because, like, I'm in, your neck of the neighborhood. He had no reason to be there. It was really weird. And at first we're just talking, and then he starts like looking at stuff and like pointing out things. He's like, you should whatever. And just from like habit of like my interactions with him, I'm like, okay, wait, whatever. And then it finally hit me. I'm like, you don't work here. It's like, what are you doing? Leave me alone. It took me a second though. Like,
old habits die hard.
Yeah, like, who the hell do you think you are? You can't come in here and tell me.
Right.
But
anything beyond what we know right now is just pure speculation. The punishment, speculation, how the NCAA is going to handle the punishments from Burgergate and kind of incorporate that into this current investigation, all assumptions and prognosticating, and it is what it is. I think
the big point too, though, like, when does repeat offenders start?
Yeah, right.
Because you found out about previous stuff while they're under probation. Is that the same thing? You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's the thing with the NCAA. They can just make it up as they go. There's nothing. They can just do what they want, essentially. If they want to, they can do what they want. So, man, I don't know. Like, I think the biggest thing that Michigan fans should have a sigh of relief about is that now, we've been saying this whole time, like, we've been saying that that there's no tangible evidence linking anyone to Connor's schemes and all that stuff. I think the big sigh of relief for Michigan fans is that now, yes, there's legitimate word from the NCAA that right now they have nothing to link Michigan to that. Now, how does that impact what's to come? I don't know, but it removes the most egregious stuff.
Right.
It takes that out of the picture. Now, again, I don't know how that's going to impact what happens next. I don't even want to speculate, but the NCAA went looking for the white whale, and the white whale was, them assuming that Michigan was having this structured in-person scouting thing that gave them a leg up and why they were so successful the last 3 years. But they haven't found that. So I guess that is the best case scenario. I mean, well, one of the best case scenarios. Obviously, you want the best case scenarios that never happen at all, but
it just goes away.
Yeah, and it just goes
Which
away.
is not happening.
Right. So, did Michigan shoot itself in the foot along the way? Yeah, of course. But, when you've got the NCAA asking for, bank information for decades, email accounts, personal cell phone stuff, I know I wouldn't be so gung-ho to give that up. I guess you could make the argument, well, if you got nothing to hide, you can give it up. But still, it's personal information you're giving to the NCAA. You're not giving it to like the FBI.
Text with my wife.
Yeah, right. All of that information.
Well, and to that point, again, I understand from a rival's perspective, the way tribalism, I get the way you're going to feel. Okay. But what's happened now is in a situation where you have to take sides, you have become staunch defenders of the NCAA.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, I think two things can be true at once, or you can hold multiple opinions. You can feel the way you feel about Michigan and what you think they did. And also understand that the NCAA saying a lack of cooperation, they don't have the power to do what they're requesting. And I would defend you in that situation as well. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, the tattoo gate stuff with Ohio State looks so much dumber now because of what's happened in terms of progress, right? And players getting paid and everything like that in hindsight. But remember, what that came from was the FBI investigation into this tattoo parlor and then discovering what was going on. And then it turns out Tressel knew about it and told the player, like, that's what he got in trouble for. Mm-hmm. Was the players coming to them and being like, hey, blah, blah, and then him telling them not to say anything. And then obviously it comes out months later. Right. But the FBI was involved in that.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go back to the Urban Meyer and everything that happened with him, there was text deletion and not providing of information and whatever. Right. So, yeah, the NCAA doesn't have subpoena power. Like, this is an organization that is flailing left and right in court, literally losing billions of dollars. Every single thing about their organization is being destroyed brick by brick. They have, this is their only fight for standing anymore, is to do this and be aggressive with something like this. And to Tennessee's credit, I know some people that like constantly bring up, the Tennessee athletic department, how they're even their attorney general and their willingness to show middle fingers to the NCAA, and maybe Michigan not being as willing to do that. Right. Because it's like, they were remember when they were going to start going after Tennessee for the inducements and whatever? They're like, try it.
Yeah, no, the hell you're not.
Try it. Your rules are garbage.
I would like to see Michigan. It would be funny to see Michigan do that. I don't know if they have the chutzpah to do it, but we'll see.
Well, we don't know where they think they have their leverage, and we don't know where.
Right, exactly.
They want to have their fights.
Exactly. There's no NOA yet. We don't know what direction NCAA is officially heading yet, so they can't really do much. But I want to go back real quick. Your average fan asked, didn't they want Stalions emails from 15 years ago? Yeah, apparently, according to some people, they wanted like an email account he used in high school. I don't know the truth to that, but yeah, allegedly that's one of the deals that they wanted that, but
which is crazy.
Yeah, so I don't know, but
I understand like the equipment in the offices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like Michigan's property.
Right, Michigan property. That I understand. And obviously interviewing people, but when you start getting into personal cell phones and stuff, like, what? No.
Yeah. I'm not willingly giving up my I've got nothing. Even if I had nothing to hide, I'd want, I'm not just going to willingly give up my.
No, I hate that argument. Never have that argument in your head, man.
Yeah.
And I hate stretching this to actual legal situations because it's not, but that analogy is out there. If I get pulled over and a cop wants to search my car, I have nothing to hide. I'm not letting him search my car.
Right.
Like I have rights, or something's just not appropriate or whatever it might be. How, again, that's why it's stupid even trying to connect the two, because they're not the same at all, right? So
yeah,
I don't know. I'll believe Michigan's going to put up a huge fight when I see it. I know they obviously were going to when it came to the Harbaugh suspension. The Big Ten's timing of that really put them in a terrible situation because the Penn State game occurred. They couldn't get the injunction. And then they were able to come to a deal again where, it was only going to be the 2 games and Harbaugh would be back for Ohio State. And then NCAA comes up and says, hey, here's this partridge thing.
Yeah, they'd still be fighting that at this point, the way the hog of the law slowly moves.
Right. Yeah, so that was the thing
they'd
too.
Still be here fighting for that.
Hell, maybe it would have dragged into the actual playoff games.
Yeah.
Who knows? So
yeah, I don't know. It's
look,
again, it's all just speculation right now, but I'm not surprised at anything. Maybe slightly surprised at Sharon deleting text messages, because we were told the whole time that text messages were deleted by former staffers, and it's still true. But
I think the reason that changed because he provided the text,
right? Well, yeah, and he provided the text, so he still deleted. Yeah, I don't know. Look, yeah, and that's the NCAA time to interpret that, what
sure.
how they see it. So
yeah, I'd be more concerned if there was anything incriminating in the text.
Yeah, there's nothing now. I think your headline really nailed it. This is turned from an investigation into a in-person scouting operation to non-compliance
in recruiting. That's what that NOA was filled with, other than Stalions' individual actions.
I know, and Michael has mentioned this a couple times, and I want to point it out.
It's not.
It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if they were, if he was sent or deleted the day of the story. There's still nothing there. They don't have anything from those text messages. So, at that point, it's just semantics. If they have all of that.
I see. Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he deleted them on the same day or sent them on the same day. They recovered those text messages and they didn't find anything on them. So at that point, it's, who shot first, Han or Guido?
What? What's that from?
Star Wars.
Oh, you said Han.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know what you said. Han shot first.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's a badass.
Hey, guy. You know what this is? This is national championship confetti. Nice profile picture, too. Wow, you look like a real hard ass. It's the fedora for me, you dork.
The cheaters thing, too, calling anything in this time period cheating, it's just absolutely, you're showing your butt, in my opinion. You really are, because, again, these recruiting violations, you want to call that cheating? Okay, every program. You know what I mean? When does it become cheating and when does it become acceptable?
Yeah.
What are you willing to accept at your own program and not have a problem with, with the way players getting paid and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's just that part. And that's why I'm willing to have a discussion with people about what Stalions did being egregious and whatever. But if you want to start telling me that's cheating in a way that gave Michigan an advantage, an insurmountable advantage or whatever, tell me you actually believe that. Knowing what you know about everyone else's sign stealing, the sharing of signs that are stolen, it's just wild. It's just the fact that you didn't know that rule existed before all this shit broke. You know what I mean? So, yeah. What they really want.
It's such a you guys are such losers. No death penalty in our horizon. Yeah, but the last 3 L's to Michigan. So,
and that's what it is. That's what I was just gonna say. Like,
sit and spin, pal.
There's no death penalty on Michigan's horizon either, if you actually read the article. But like, this is my thing. Is like, you are so incapable of handling Michigan winning the last 3 years and Michigan winning a national championship that the only way you can get the victory is this, right? By the NCAA doing something to justify to take that away from you. And then it's funny because they'll bring up, oh yeah, what about the last 20 years? Okay, you're right. You have that. You lean on that. I don't care. You do. You have that. So you're the one coping, not Michigan. Michigan fans are plenty happy with the last 3 years and the results that were obtained, right? And they're fully aware and they're extra happy because of how much the previous 15 or whatever it was sucked. Michigan fans know that. Ohio State fans, you still have that. You got to the playoff.
There's nothing that,
despite losing to Michigan, like, you're the one so upset, not the other way around.
There's nothing that
be happy it's only been 3 years. Cool.
There's nothing that they can say that'll take away the fact that Michigan won a national championship and they have to deal with that for the next 365 days. So
we know this firsthand knowledge. The 2013 basketball national championship is vacated. Louisville lost it. It was taken away because, again, ineligible players and, oh my God, some really disgusting things were occurring in that program, right? Yeah. Do you think a single Louisville fan gives a crap and feels like, and we're not even saying like vacating wins and having the title stripped would come. I still see zero path to that. You guys want to continue to believe it from reading that NOA draft, go ahead. They're not taking that away. Like, Josh was at the game. Is the Men in Black eraser thing around to take that away? Like, it's not going to go, man. And again, if they don't, and again, I don't expect it, but if they don't vacate wins, if they don't take the title away and you continue to hold on and you look like Jets fans, still talking about Deflategate and pretending Tom Brady didn't win Super Bowls, you look stupid.
Right.
And it's not all of them. I've seen multiple Ohio State fans, especially right after they lost the game in November, go like, guys, this was fun, but they beat us, right? Football players, coaches, Maurice Claret, you've seen him like, dude, you know what I mean? So it's out there. And I know every segment of every fan base has, stupid people or whatever, but I don't know. Just grasping to every one of these, the hammer. If there's a hammer, it's still going to be a while. I got bad news for you. So we're very early in this process. And again, I'll be interested to see, to your point, Josh, we don't want to try and predict what the NCAA wants to try and do by grouping some of this level 1 stuff into repeat to try and make the penalties as harsh as they can. But I see that being on the individuals themselves. And I see a massive fine for Michigan, the same thing I've seen all along, but punishing the players that had nothing to do with it by removing their victory. There's no evidence in anything the NCAA has done previously to suggest that. And there's no, in this ESPN article, nothing to suggest that either. But
can Michigan do anything about the fact that this garbage league? No. And they can't respond either. So they're in a really bad spot. But I mean, it is what it is. Like, this stuff.
You do say that a lot.
It is. I mean, at this point, it is. It's like it's leaked, but it's going to come out anyway. Like, it's just coming out earlier.
So the problem is, unless they're literally watermarking individual versions of this document, there's no way for them to, like, this isn't like the government top secret information where everybody has a code and they can figure out exactly who touched that document and trace it back to the person that leaked it, right? So who knows how many hands this draft got into. And again, I've brought up, I'm not, again, to Josh's point, not trying to get into tinfoil scenario, but the NCAA could just as easily say, how do you know it wasn't somebody there?
It could, yeah. I mean,
that leaked it. So.
I would be highly, highly shocked if it was someone from Michigan. But I mean, it's a possibility that someone from Michigan could be leaking this stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not saying it is, and I'm not even like hinting that it is.
I'm only annoyed because I know this. I'm only annoyed because I know this can be done without leaks, because it has been multiple times in the last year. Like I know it can be done. You know what I mean? But
right.
I
don't know.
So I'm not. How can you separate Stalions, who's representing Michigan? The NCAA doesn't care if he acted alone. They do, though, in terms of the way the punishment works. And again, if I saw anything in that draft of allegations that connected him in that way, then I wouldn't be separating him. But they separate him.
It's not. It doesn't hurt or it doesn't help his case that he's off doing stuff with Central Michigan too. Like, he's separating himself on purpose.
Right.
He's freelancing his services to, another program. He's almost separating himself by default.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the premise that, he's representing Michigan. I don't know.
No, I get it too. I understand. I just think that, again, if I saw something in this draft, Michigan is specifically mentioned as the school receiving a level 1 for the non-cooperation. And there's no mention of Michigan for the integrity of, like, so when the Big Ten suspended Harbaugh, they were suspending Michigan for like what the commissioner felt was a violation of their sportsmanship policy.
Yeah.
Right. That was making it a part of Michigan. So far, the NCAA hasn't said or shown anything that they're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, yeah, you would understand, but that's why they were so desperate, to Josh's point, to find that white whale. Good Lord.
Oh, geez.
That's a good sign. We're done. But yeah, find that white whale, that connection to other coaches and a more coordinated scheme. Right. And again, that comes back to my most original point of all of this that some fans seem to not want to grasp. More than likely, Stalions was in a gray area. This isn't a clear-cut violation of a rule. If it was, it would be stated.
Well, yeah, you can tell by what they're charging him with.
Right.
They're charging him with
click here.
You're not gonna live that one down. They're looking for
that was bad.
Nails.
That was bad.
Oh, that was probably the funniest accidental slip of your life.
I hope so. I don't have a lot of great moments, and I've got a lot of bad ones. That's on there. That was funny. Yeah. Anyway,
I forgot what we were talking about. You can tell by what I'm reading the comments and doing this at the same time. You can tell by what the NCAA is doing by charging Connor with they don't even have a specific bylaw they're charging him with. They're just kind of being like, hey man, you're a real asshole. Here's stuff that right. We're charging you of being a dumb asshole. It's not even anything specific.
We know the rule.
You did a bunch of dumb stuff.
11-6.
You're an idiot.
We know the bylaw. They could easily state that, and they don't. Yeah, that is funny.
I mean, it is.
Juice's ghost is killing this. Local signals.
Yeah. Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the Netflix documentary. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, that's coming out the 20-something?
7th?
26th?
7th, something like that.
I'll be curious to see how this lines up with an NOA, whether they get it, whether they deliver it to Michigan, or the documentary comes out first. I don't think it really matters either way. I think the documentary is incredibly stupid, but it's just a cash grab to.
Well, and I've said this before.
Monetize a last effort to get your 15 minutes in, but
and this is this isn't. I think the term documentary has really lost.
Yeah.
What it means. It's its true definition at this point, where reality TV can now be called documentary. You know, the whole Tiger King thing. And then you like look into it afterwards and find out a bunch of stuff was either a lie or misleading, or stuff was left out, whatever. This series specifically was behind the Swamp Kings documentary, which, what a story. If somebody really would have gotten into what was happening at Florida in that Urban Meyer era and all that, what was it, like 38% of the players on that team had been charged with a crime?
Yeah.
And, you know, just, it would have been really interesting, but it wasn't. The people that were willing to participate in it were only willing to participate if they could shape their own narrative, their own propaganda, and think this wasn't going to be said and this was going to be said, right? The Malice in the Palace documentary.
Right.
And then it turns out the Pacers were the ones that produced it.
Yeah, that was heavily Pacers.
And it just turned into like, we were going to win 2 NBA championships and we're the ones that got screwed. And it was like, ugh. So I just don't think Stalions is a part of this unless, one, his lawyer has approved whatever. He's not going to put himself in any sort of legal jeopardy. And unless he could just go out there and tell his side.
No, this is, I'm willing to bet, I'm willing to put good money down that this documentary is just going to be 1 hour of self-filleting. It's going to be nothing, just a big giant fluff piece. Oh, look how good I am. Oh, look at how everyone else does this. It's just going to be a,
well, in his own actions. If you think he's bitter against Michigan, I got bad news for you.
I mean, it's going to be
the dude was at the Rose Bowl cheering on Michigan.
Yeah. I mean, you got Dave Portnoy in it, like, for crying out loud. Like, if you expect this to be an anti-Michigan documentary, I'm sorry, you're going to be sorely disappointed on the 27th when it's just going to be a giant slurp fest of his own abilities. You know, that's just what it's going to be. I mean, this is going to be nothing new in there.
Newton's law exists in media as well, right? So as the narrative has moved one direction on the other side of negatively shaping Michigan, it's allowed this other, I mean, Stalions became like a cult hero in a weird way. Yeah. Right. You just brought up Portnoy. Portnoy was like sneaking him in the background of pizza review videos. He brought him on the stage.
Yeah.
At the whole thing has become a joke.
Yeah.
Which again, to the point of the leaks and stuff, if I'm the NCAA, I don't want this stuff out there.
Well, did you see
they've lost complete control of the narrative?
Did you see the Trente Jones tweet the other day?
Oh yeah,
Connor Stalions told me to run through an MFer's face here on display. Right. It's all a joke now. People are tweeting out like, "Oh yeah, Connor Stalions told I forgot what one of them was, like running through Brandon Hickman because he's soft or something like that." Like,
yeah, the Aiden Hutchinson thing was like he told him this dude was gonna get pulled over. Yeah,
it's a joke. It's a joke.
Well, and then again, that goes back to my point of misunderstanding the scandal altogether and the not understanding sign stealing.
I told my friend today, this whole investigation has gone so far away from the genesis of what this was all about. This has gone, it's lost the plot completely. It's just gone from what it originally was. Now it's devolved into recruiting violations that were found in the process. Coaches not cooperating. It's just completely just devolved into just this, whatever this is right now. I mean,
well, and what that does is, frankly, it leaves enough breadcrumbs for everybody.
Right.
So,
and it's funny how people interpret it, because you got one side today, Michigan State and Ohio State fans going, "Oh my God, this is horrible. Oh, they've cheated. This is the worst thing ever. They're going to be screwed." And then Michigan fans are like, "Well, yeah, there's nothing they found there." So you're never going to convince. I mean, this goes in any argument, whether it's politics or anything like that, you're never going to be able to convince the other side of your point.
No, it's confirmation bias.
You're always going to be wrong.
It's confirmation bias. We find the things that say what we already believe. And, so yeah, Brian's point, I want to see the footage. I'd love to see some of this iPhone footage just one time. That'd be great. Knock out a couple questions real quick, and then we'll probably take off. I didn't realize we were already at the 2-hour mark. But Paul, again, I don't know that we feel super confident speculating. But again, from what I can tell, just individual targeting, Moore could face a serious suspension. I don't know how they would handle
dumbass. Hey, dumbass.
Why don't you community wrong?
Yeah, why don't you spell community right, you absolute moron? You know what's done? Your spelling. How well do you? 5? Absolute idiot. Get out of here.
So good.
You stupid moron.
But yeah, they called Moore's punishment a level 2. Can you not make that go away now that there it goes? Okay.
I made it go away.
They called Moore's violation a level 2, but then the potential repeat offender thing. Again, a show cause means absolutely nothing while he's at Michigan. But yeah, I don't know what they would do with a suspension, how lengthy they would want to make that for Moore. Everyone else that's mentioned is no longer with the program, so they're looking at probably hefty show causes, which again, as long as they don't come to college football, doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that impacts the investigation. Like people no longer being there, does that have any impact on it?
So to be fair, in the cases of Tennessee and other programs like that, it's had a massive impact.
Yeah.
And especially in the case of Stalions and Partridge, because Michigan fired them literally for, well, I guess Stalions technically resigned, but they fired them for the things. They no longer work at Michigan because of the things that the NCAA is alleging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, and in Minter's case, it's not,
I love
he left. So they're like, well, we can't do anything. Right. Burgergate stuff. Hey, we self-punished. We put in the recruiting restrictions. Right. So because they're layering more recruiting stuff, and they'll probably try and tie it to the predation. Again, I could see some limit on travel or contact or some things with recruiting. Again, I don't know about scholarships, especially because they just expanded the scholarships. I don't know what that would look like.
Yeah.
Michigan's level 1 piece for their failure to cooperate. That's $10 million, 20 something. It's going to be a stupid amount of money fine.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's just impossible.
That'd be my guess, but
impossible to guess. I'm not even going to say it's irresponsible. It's just impossible to guess.
Yeah, no, this is just an exercise in fun. Almost.
Right.
I'm not
and
telling you these things based on anything I've heard. Too. Just looking at previous instances of what the NCAA has done. But yeah, if they're looking to take a big bite, but then look, Michigan has an opportunity to fight and go to court and blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know,
right.
And you're out into next year,
You're asking the NCAA to act rationally as well at the same time. So like you're expecting two sides to be rational with one another who aren't cooperating.
Point, if Michigan plays it out long enough, they might not even exist anymore.
Well, that too. I
mean, they're becoming less and less relevant with the growth of the conferences and the media deals. And then every single time they go to court,
they lose. They get their butts kicked every time.
And now it's gone from this is an amateur sport to how many different ways can we get revenue? Let's start sponsoring our conferences.
Yep.
It's not the Big 12 anymore. It's the All-State Big 12. And let's, now we're going to put corporate logos on football fields. It's funny. It was all about amateurism until they had to share that revenue. Now they're looking for more revenue to make up for the revenue they have to share.
Yep.
It's all greed on all sides, man. But
yeah, I think here, can Michigan fight in court? Does it go to some arbitration? I mean, it's a little bit of both. They could fight if they wanted to, but there is also like a trial that happens when it comes to NCAA investigations after the NOA is delivered and Michigan has a chance to respond. It goes to some hearing that, when they figure out punishment. So again, it's another one of those scenarios where I can't really talk about what Michigan is going to do because we don't know what's going to happen. Like there could be some scenario where, Michigan and NCAA find a middle ground where it works for both sides and it's not egregious. And they say, okay, we're done. Or the NCAA could decide it would want to just go roughshod and just go nuts. And then, Michigan fights back. We don't really know Michigan's intentions. So I think that's the big part is we don't really know what Michigan's going to do. And well, at the same time, we don't know what the NCAA is going to do either. So,
well, and
it's
you
tough.
look at Kansas, you look at Kansas and Bill Self and how long that process took. Right. So hold on.
Me too, Johnny. Me too. Trust me. I've dealt with this for like 15 years.
Randy, I feel like you've said the same thing like 3 times. So again, you're more than welcome to go to ESPN and read the entire article yourself. There is nothing, according to the reporting from the people that read the draft of the NOA, that suggests Stallion acting alone doesn't make a difference. The level 1 allegation against Michigan is for them not cooperating with the investigation. There is not a single thing in that entire article that says that Sharon Moore, Michigan football, because Moore's the current coach, Harbaugh's gone, right? There's nothing in there that says Moore or Michigan football will face level 1 punishment or allegations relative to Stalions' activity. I agree wins will not be wins will be vacated. A postseason ban is definitely on the table. Again, the NCAA has, their own behavior, gone away from postseason bans in recent years because you're punishing current players for former actions. And in this case, the actions of no players whatsoever. The postseason ban is more irrelevant than ever because there is a 12-team playoff that is not sanctioned by the NCAA, that they have absolutely no say in who gets in or who is given the award of the national champion, right? I don't see it. So I'm reacting to what was put in that report. If I see something that says Michigan is facing a level 1 violation for an advanced scouting scheme that violates, I know the bylaw, it's 1161, not mentioned in the draft. So that's where I'm coming from. If Stalions acting alone didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying so damn hard to prove he didn't act alone. They wouldn't mention that Jim Harbaugh was not connected. He should have known. Again, his individual responsibility, he should have known by the red flags is what they said, right? The CEO rule. We expect that. Sharon Moore and his deletion of texts. Nothing incriminating in the text. He was the one that gave them level 2. So that's all. Sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. And Randy, I actually, other than you can't be so stupid, you've actually, as far as Ohio State fans go, been, cool. So I'm willing to have the conversation with you. I'm sorry if I'm being aggressive, but can you pull up the last thing you just said, please?
Yes. Oops, sorry. Hold on a second.
Keep acting like a repeat offender. Won't have anything to do with the punishment. Players have an out if there is a bowl ban. Okay. Again, just pay attention. The repeat offender label was tagged specifically to Sharon Moore in relation to his previous involvement with the Burgergate violations. And it literally says he may face a suspension or a show cause. I just got done talking about, I don't know how long the NCAA may want to suspend him for and how the show cause doesn't matter while he's at Michigan. Again, dude, if you have anything you can bring up about how the punishment will affect the program, please feel free to show it to me from the article, but please stop asking. The Big Ten has nothing to do with it. What are you talking about? Oh my God.
Yes, Trevor, embrace the hate. Yes. Come to the dark
The Big
side.
Ten has nothing. What did the Big Ten, what are you talking about?
Yes.
What did I say about the Big Ten? The Burgergate negotiated resolution was with the NCAA.
That's funny.
The Big Ten closed its investigation into the sign stealing already. Those are separate. Keep going, bud. This is great.
Steve is just
the shark jokes. Bring them on.
He brings every once in a while. He brings like the sneaky little comments in there that are
Steve's
just,
always good. Steve's always
just
good.
really funny.
What were you about to say before that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to Paul here.
Recruiting momentum.
From recruiting momentum. I mean, if Michigan was able to recruit right now, and this thing has been underneath them for a good part of 6 months now, longer than that, probably. Actually, it's almost, we're getting closer to a year, so it's probably more like 10 or 11 months. I'm not worried about recruiting with this coming out. Well, I mean, there might be more questions from recruits, but I mean, they've answered all of these questions for months now already. I mean, this isn't new information. This isn't a surprise. Excuse me. So
what's going to change is negative recruiting, because they're going to do exactly what Randy is doing and misrepresent what the article says and tell these kids, oh, they're getting a postseason ban. They're getting a whatever.
Yeah. Go back to Michael here. Is anyone in Michigan currently good? No, because I'm not aware of anyone negotiating anything with the NCAA right now because they don't have an NOA.
Yep.
There is no threat of a suspension for more at all right now.
It's not in the draft. That was just what was speculated by not Pete. I can't remember the other author that was involved in the article. That was just their suggestion. Yeah, that was just the suggestion that he could face a suspension because the repeat violator part was mentioned.
Yeah. So any talk of punishments is just talk at this point. It's speculation. Thank you, Paul. Dan Murphy. It's speculation at this point. There can't be punishments listed in the NOA. All of that stuff is either negotiated or just handed out by the NCAA. So,
and then in that situation, you can rely on some precedent because we know what a level 1 is. We know what a level 2 is. Right. So that's where some of that talk comes from.
Right.
The show cause stuff. That's all easy to speculate based on what the allegations are. But nothing in there says you will face this punishment, because what a notice of allegations is them saying, hey, we're alleging this about you. Tell us more about it. Tell us why it's wrong. Give us your side of it, so.
Yeah. So again, it's
football.
It's just speculation. So, I mean,
Kyle McCord would be better than Howard. I agree.
I'm not. I think so too.
I'm very pro Kyle McCord. I think it's crazy.
I think I am. Me too. I don't know when anything of substance is going to happen. I mean, I don't expect it to be in the immediate future. I mean, I'm thinking months down the line. I mean, we may not even get the NOA in the next month.
But I will say this: a leak is probably going to encourage.
It's probably going to come out sooner or later.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if some NOA stuff comes out sooner. But I know, I'm with you.
The goalposts keep moving in terms of when this is coming out.
It's coming tomorrow. Last month, it's coming today.
It's coming out. There was talk it was going to come out last week, and obviously it was more of a draft than an actual, the NOA itself. But I mean, when there's a leak like this, it typically means it's not going to be too far behind. But
NOA. Your average fan. NOA is going to come Texas week. I would not be shocked.
No, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not.
I hate to play the victim card, and be like, oh, they're persecuting us and they're out to get us and blah, blah, blah. But man, some of the timing is crazy. Suspending Harbaugh Friday night while they're on the plane to Penn State.
Yeah.
The stuff coming out before, or like literally the day before Big Ten media days.
Right.
It's when it's happened 5 or 6 times at this point, it's not hard to be like, oh man, this feels so intentional.
I'm kind of actually surprised this didn't leak out the first day of camp. I mean, we were talking about like a week into camp now. So, I mean, it's not that big of a distraction.
Yeah.
But, who knows? Again, this is the NCAA we're talking about. Who knows?
Alabama fans are pretty reasonable. It has actually been kind of interesting. Ohio State, but it has been kind of interesting to see the response from rival fans, especially, again, former players, coaches, whatever, and who grabs on and who doesn't. Michigan State and Ohio State, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen, luckily this has toned down a lot in recent years, but I mean, we've seen the rivalry when it comes to things that have nothing to do with football, just awful, awful things that have occurred on these college campuses, and people have tried to turn that into rivalry discourse. It's like, good God, can you draw the line between football and people actually being victims of real abuse? It's awful. That's come down a little bit. So of course, the tribalism of, again, if it was the other way around, look at the Ryan Day and the third day investigators and all that stuff was out there, and Michigan grabbing onto that. Everybody wants it against a rival, so for Alabama or another program like that. Yeah.
And look, Alabama fans have been pretty reasonable.
And look, I said at the time too, when this all started coming out and they were talking to coaches, do you think it was a coincidence that SEC coaches were like, yeah, whatever?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they probably because they cheat their asses.
Right. Don't.
Yeah.
Don't ask.
Don't ask. Don't tell. In the SEC, right?
I always think of the Chappelle sketch. When he's being the president, he's like, somebody asks about oil, and he knocks the glass over and runs away. Like
4, 5, 5.
Sign stealing. Sign stealing. Who's talking about sign? Go. They run away.
I plead the fifth.
And I wouldn't be shocked if the documentary, if there's a lot of talk from Connor about that, the level of coordination with sign stealers at other programs.
Oh, absolutely. There's going to be, they did this here and we all coordinate with each other. It's just going to be just a fluff fest about how he did his stuff and no one knowing at Michigan and how everyone else does it. And then give examples of how everyone else does it.
Yeah.
That's just what's going to be. I mean, it's
and that doesn't work.
No one's going to buy it. I mean, no one's going to look at him after this and go, I forgive you.
Right. It's true, but no one cares either.
I forgive you.
Yeah.
It's going to change zero opinions, like either side of the fence. It's not, no one's going to come into that going, you know what? I need to hear it from him before I really make up.
What people want, again, confirmation bias. They're desperate that he's going to throw Michigan under the bus.
Exactly. They need.
If there's not, then he's a loser, and of course he's lying and blah blah blah.
Right.
Oh, and even the punishment. Even when Michigan does get punished, if it doesn't reach the level that rivals want, they're going to turn on the NCAA.
Yeah.
And
I do think
it'll always be an asterisk for me and blah, blah, blah. People are always going to get what they want from the situation. That'll never change.
do think Michigan will get punished. I just don't know what degree. I mean, there is no scenario where the NCAA is going to be like, well, no, you're good. We're done here. They're going to be punished.
We're talking about 4 level 1s for 4 individuals.
There's going to be some level of punishment. The $1 million question right now is what those punishments are and how severe. And no idea. No one knows. No one. Everyone can speculate. Everyone has an opinion, but no one knows. So I think fans need to.
I'm obviously closer to. I didn't think anybody currently on staff was going to get any sort of punishment based on whatever. We knew Moore had turned over text, I guess. Yeah. So the deletion and the level 2 and then the repeat thing. Yeah, I think that's one area I've moved. I now think Moore is going to get more punishment than I would have predicted before. Mm-hmm. I've not ever thought vacated wins or postseason ban. Nothing in this has moved me that direction yet.
Yep.
I knew there was going to be more recruiting stuff in this. We talked about that. I think how much they let in. I thought the recruiting might be a little afterthought. Like we also found this, but like you said, it feels like the recruiting piece is almost a bigger piece of this now than Connor is. Yeah. So now I wonder if, maybe the recruiting restrictions are going to be significant. Again, what that looks like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
That part I maybe think a little bit more than before. But in terms of the sign stealing, advanced scouting, being this egregious rule break that violated competition and wins being vacated, unless Pete Thamel and Murphy saw that in the draft and decided it wasn't a good enough story, which there's a 0% chance of, there's still nothing in that initial draft that makes me think it's heading that direction.
Yeah. It's funny how the narrative quickly flipped. It's not even like sign stealing anymore. It's, Sharon deleted text messages now.
Well, yeah, because that was the headline. That was the literal headline.
Yeah. So,
and why was it the headline? Because he's the coach.
Right. Exactly. So basically, I think Michigan fans should brace for some level of punishment. I don't. The expectation should be punishment, but I don't want that to feel like to come off as, you should be scared or worried about the punishments. I just think they're going to be some level of punishment for what happened. The severity. I think that's something that needs to be figured out, but I don't think that should be considered bad thing either, like an end of the world doomsday scenario either.
Well, and look, when I get something from Michigan people, it's obviously going to be pro Michigan, right?
Always is. Yeah.
It's nice to to somehow have an exterior source, maybe to compare and find something in the middle ground. But before this story and after, like, the Michigan mood has not changed from what I've been told in terms of they knew about this. There's nothing new in this. Again, the reporting I've got is this is an old draft. Michigan is working with something different than this draft. And they continue to not have concern. Now, that was kind of the vibe around some of the Burgergate stuff too. And that might have been how confident Michigan was feeling in the legal team that they had hired and what was going to happen in court. And then those things didn't happen. And then also some things they didn't know were brought to their attention. So they're operating under what they know, right? And what their own legal people are telling them, right? So I can only feed off of that. And again, the information I continue to see, if this report today talked about competition and competitive balance and something in the language of improper victories or something like that, then, oh man, my eyebrows would go up and be like, okay, I've been wrong about this. They've got something.
Yep.
They've got something new, right? That's not what that report today said.
Yeah, look, do I think Michigan is in a worse or better place than they were yesterday? I think it's I don't think anything's changed, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it's been status quo this whole time. And after this recent leak, I still think it's very much status quo. I don't think Michigan's in a worse place. I don't think Michigan's in a better place. I think they're right where they have always been in this thing, and nothing's really
You're
changed.
in a worse place because there's another negative story about
That's true. Yes. That's the
story itself is more negative than the actual reporting.
Correct. Correct. That's the only worst place is that you have more fodder for rival fans. And
well, look, from a recruiting standpoint, there's going to be negative recruiting pushing, and but so yeah. Last question, Michael Newman. I agree the report hasn't revealed anything new, but why does it feel viscerally bad? Because it feels bad because you're hearing level 1 violations.
Yeah, you hear level. Yeah, exactly right. You hear level 1 violations. You hear multiple. You hear repeat offenders. You hear
more could be suspended. Repeat violator. Yeah, the terminology around it's not great.
Yeah, exactly. You hear all these buzzwords, and you automatically assume, the worst. And I'm not saying you specifically, Michael, but I'm just saying,
no. Of course you feel that way.
Yeah, when you hear these buzzwords and things like that.
Look, Michigan wasn't vindicated today or anything.
No, absolutely not. They're never going to be.
That's what we're gonna be accused of, right? The sunshine blowers and pretend. Oh, Michigan did nothing wrong. I have been consistent. I'm not saying Michigan didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
I've used the term egregious multiple times.
Yeah, it's dumb.
I also think it's dumb and stupid. And not what you think it is in terms of when Bruce Feldman said it's worth 21 points a game. I was done.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Yeah,
I was done, dude.
That's insanity.
Right. I was done. And that's the part where I continue to where rival fans don't like where I'm positioned, which is I don't think Michigan won a single game because of what Stalions was doing. And, this idea of how it would benefit them. Why did they wait until the second half in 2022 against Ohio State to benefit from what Stalions was doing? They struggled in that first half, right? Why did they wait? Why didn't they use it to beat TCU or Michigan State?
Yeah, they almost lost to Rutgers.
Right. Almost lost to Maryland.
Yeah.
Had to run the ball 30 times against Penn State. I know Harbaugh was suspended, whatever, but
yeah, they couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't scout ahead for Chop Robinson being an absolute menace.
Yeah, and it was still athletic, and that was like the comparison to the Astros thing, where it's like, they're trying to show the sideline. It's like, oh, look, Stalions says it's a run, and then they make this play or whatever. And, the Astros, they hear the trash can bang, so it was a changeup and he gets a hit, right? Like, there's such a significant difference.
Yeah.
Because for one, what the Astro did is explicitly not allowed. And what Stalions was doing, stealing signs, is allowed. It was the potential of this advanced scouting thing that, again, I think it's dumb, and I wish he wouldn't have done any of it because it wouldn't have made any damn difference in what.
No, this whole thing is stupid, and Michigan should get dogged for it because it's so stupid and
yeah, that's absolutely fair.
Right, it's all fair.
I said the more thing, like whatever your thinking was in deleting the text, like
it's all fair game. It's all fair game. I don't think anything is out of bounds or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's all fair game. Just don't be
so.
stupid.
But yeah, so here we are almost a year later. We'll continue to cover this story and then any updates as they come out. Obviously, the tangible NOA, even when Michigan gets it, I don't think you're going to see that. We waited, like I said, almost 9 months for the Burgergate one to come. And the only reason we knew as much as we knew was because there was a negotiated settlement between Michigan and the NCAA. So unless some sort of agreement between Michigan and the NCAA is coming with this whole thing, I don't think we're going to hear much about it unless we're in year 2 of the slow drip of leaks. And then we'll just have to react to those as they come.
Nothing surprises me.
No, it is, yeah, the biggest scandal in NCAA history is breaking a rule that is allowed in high school in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, look at it. Took a year. It took this to get headset communication in the helmets, and they will have Microsoft tablets, or is it Apple? No, I don't remember which one. It's Apple. The NFL is the Surface tablet. They're going to have Apple tablets on the sidelines this year, literally, because the NFL's done it forever, being able to watch the last play and, embracing that technology that exists. The NCAA got together in 2021 and said this rule needs to be tossed, and they're just so damn inefficient and what they do and so wrong about everything that they do that's why we're here. They're so reactive to everything.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I had to use it once, but anyway, so the part I'm most frustrated about is, look, football's around the corner. We don't get to talk about football.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to continue to try to do. We have our camp kickoff series over at michigan.rivals.com. It's always on the homepage. Click camp kickoff, and all of our camp related content is in there. Nearly everything is free in terms of position breakdowns, depth charts, team stories. Obviously, when the coaches have media appearances and breaking down their comments for you, almost all of that's always going to be free. The intel, the behind the scenes information, that you can get by becoming a subscriber at michigan.rivals.com, getting in the den and seeing the reporting from Josh. Sometimes me, usually not. Usually I hear one or two things, I throw to Josh and he confirms, right? There's a reason he's the insider. But there's tons of premium, especially when we get into the season, we'll have a lot of premium content from, an analysis standpoint and such. If you're not a subscriber already, Sunday is subscription Sunday. I don't know, Josh, have you tweeted it already? Or
I don't know if I'm going to run that today. I might do a subscription Sunday on Monday instead.
We might have a subscription Monday. Anyway,
yeah, we'll do a subscription Sunday Monday.
Make sure you're following Josh Henschke on Twitter. He tweets out the subscription Sunday graphic. You retweet it, follow the rules he lists in there, and one person wins a free 1-year subscription to Maize and Blue Review every Sunday, possibly Monday.
Yeah, when there's not NCAA news that comes out that ruins an entire day's worth of coverage.
That's exactly what today was. Yeah. So look,
boy.
we're going to try and focus on football, just like I'm sure Michigan is. So it's going to be a big week of camp. It's kind of like moving day for a Saturday golf tournament, because the last week of camp is really going to be focused on installing game prep for the first week of the season. So you got 2 more weeks of figuring out depth chart stuff. Who's going to start at quarterback? What's going on the offensive line? Can a couple guys like Jair Hill and Zeke Berry lock down their roles on defense? Is there some depth being found along the defensive line? There's a lot of football questions out there. This is a Michigan team that, man, it's weird. It feels like they could be in that 9-3 bubble, and it feels like they're a couple pieces away from absolutely being in the Big Ten and national championship conversation again this year. So this defense is nasty. We know that for sure. It's going to be about figuring out an offense that can have its own identity and play along for sure. So that's the stuff we're going to be talking about all week, and hopefully next week on Hail to the Podcast, we'll be able to really get into some fall camp breakdown, and some of this stuff will be behind us. But look, we'll continue to have coverage on it because it's obviously a big story, the NOA report and what we know. Once again, high viewership on this show. A lot of folks have stuck throughout a very, very long show, so we appreciate you all. A lot of regulars. If you're watching this back on playback, make sure like, subscribe, notification bell so you do know when we go live. Typically, Hail to the Podcast will be live Sundays at 7 throughout the season and year. Obviously, we felt like we had to go a little early today just with the breaking news from ESPN. So thank you. Great show like usual. Again, the comments, the questions, everybody else contributing. This is a community show. We're here to talk with you, not at you. Wouldn't be a good show without you guys. So we thank you all so much. Again, follow us over at michigan.rivals.com, and we will see you in a week on Hail to the Podcast.